Aloha and welcome to the Songs and Stories podcast. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Steve Roby. Let's get started.
My name is Scott Skiba. I'm the Assistant Artistic Director and the Stage Director and Choreographer for today's production. We have with us Maestro.
Good afternoon.
Maestro Paul Floyd.
Maestro Paul Floyd.
I'm Michelle Hartman, costumer.
So we're just going to share a little bit of insight, talk a little bit about how the production came together. It's very informal. We do have to stick to a strict 20-minute time limit because our friends here at Kahilu need time to fog out the seats. So as soon as we end, we'll ask that you all go back to the lobby. They'll come in, they'll do their seat fogging to get everything ready for the production. So Michelle has some pre-show duties to tend to. So we're gonna start with Michelle, just talk a little bit about how you brought the characters to life, your general concept, and some Easter eggs.
Well, I really love this show. I've always been a fan of mythology, Greek, Roman mythology, and this one seemed right up my alley. Working with Scott and the whole Hawaii Performing Arts Festival has been amazing. They bring such talented individuals to the Big Island to do these productions that it's just awesome that they come every summer and treat us with all of this wonderful, wonderful work that they do. They worked super hard on the singing and the music and the staging of it all. And this one's super fun because it's a comedy and it's kind of taking all of that mythology and turning it on its head and making fun of it. We sort of based the gods and goddesses off of a more modern take on what they would be like if they were in our era instead of in an ancient time. So you'll see some nods to things of now. Cupid is kind of pride colored. She's very rainbowy, which I really enjoyed doing. Let's see, Orpheus is kind of our straight man, I would say. Eurydice as well, but there was a lot of fun in creating her looks for when she's sweet and when she's not so sweet, which I think you'll see the actress does an amazing job of portraying both sides of that.
Maestro, talk a little bit about characterization coming to life in the costume. You can always see the actors and actresses really take on a new life when they're in costume. Do you notice a little bump in what they're doing musically as well in terms of characterization and seeing that musical characterization and vocal characterization kind of come full circle?
That's a good question because it really is kind of amazing when we spend all our time in rehearsal rooms on the HBA campus, and there's a lot of great energy, but it's not the same as when you get in the theater and all of a sudden you've got more space, you can hear your voice in a different way, and then you put on a costume, and finally I think we have the permission to actually be somebody else, even though we keep trying to get them to let down their inhibitions and act and be someone else and bring words and ideas to life in a different way. But it's so much easier when you can kind of hide behind a costume or something like that. So yeah, it's wonderful when we finally get to the theater and can start bringing it together with the orchestra and costumes, because it changes everything. We've had a marvelous pianist working with us on this from Los Angeles, one of our 3 collaborative piano professionals. But it's just not the same thing as when you get the orchestra and you've got other colors to kind of inspire you. And Offenbach was great with his orchestrations, and the strings they'll be painting one person's character, and then the winds will be somebody else, and you get these dialogue going in the orchestra as well as on stage, and it all works quite magically.
So Michelle and I had talked, via Zoom about what we might do. We had ideas about what we would ask the participants to bring with them. And then, the realities of just either the measurements maybe being a little bit different or things they brought. Some of them land really well and work. Some of them need a lot of creativity and being somewhat isolated here on the island where we have what we have.
Yep.
Can you talk a little bit about that and your resourcefulness and maybe some things came to life, maybe some unexpected things? I remember Diana, for instance, the character Diana, like we initially thought one thing and then, when you see her today or when you see her again today after yesterday. So maybe you could unpack that a little bit.
Yeah.
Run back.
It's always fun trying to source things, Nobody ships to Alaska or Hawaii. As we all know from living here. So this was sort of a beg, borrow, and steal endeavor is how we kind of tagged it. So a lot of my friends, my very, very good friends, lent me pieces, gave me pieces, helped out with finding things for me, running the Hilo and the Goodwill just to, grab a fox fur or a corset, that kind of thing. Diana was super fun. She's the goddess of the moon and the hunt, and I love her outfit. I think I'm gonna be Diana for Halloween. So if you guys are around at the end of October.
You have a special costume rental. Rent your favorite character from Orpheus. Everybody on island.
And as hot as it is here, Diana would never give up that fur she's wearing because she looks really good in it.
It's super fun, and I really appreciate being able to share tonight's show with all of you. I hope you enjoy it.
Do you all like operetta? I love operetta. Yeah,
You're about to.
You'll have to love it after today. I mean, what's not to love?
Maestro, what's the difference between operetta and opera?
Well, operas, I think you kind of know. Operetta, I suppose, is basically the more of a lighthearted story, farce, no tragedies, and it's usually got spoken dialogue. So like the musicals of today. So it's kind of in between opera and musicals, but it's got to have spoken dialogue or it's not going to be a true operetta. Offenbach wrote a ton of these when he was first starting out, and most of them were one acts, which was kind of very common. And it wasn't until he did Orpheus in the Underworld that he could do a multi-act work. They changed the rules and regulations in Paris, and he was able to do this work, which actually, it's kind of interesting because when it first came out in 1858, it was a two-act work. And then later on, he revised it and added ballets and added some of the characters and songs that you'll hear today in a four-act version. So it has multiple versions. We're kind of doing a mishmash of the two. It didn't have an overture really in the two-act version. So the Austrian Karl Binder wrote an overture that we're using today that everybody likes because it's got all the great tunes. So you'll hear all kinds of things that you might not have in 1858.
Nice. And I know you have some pre-show prep to do as well, so maybe one last question and then we can take some questions from the audience as well. But we first met in 2017 here at HPAF, and we were doing a very different collaboration. We did Don Giovanni, which is an opera, drama giocosa. What's different about working on something like Mozart, like either in the pit and maybe with the young artists up here, when you compare it to something like Orpheus or something like that that's operetta? Are there different challenges or different nuances that you got to bring to the table?
Well, one thing that kind of surprised me about this was I think our young people have grown up with a different kind of musical theater than I did, growing up with Rodgers and Hammerstein and Lerner and Loewe and all those things. I think they're even in a generation beyond that. So I thought this style would be super easy for them to kind of grasp as far as the rubato, the way lines can ebb and flow, and the way you have to kind of bring out maybe what looks on the paper like a squarish rhythm and melody to really bring it to life. And this was a bit harder than I thought it would be. These people are perhaps better versed in Mozart operas. They've probably done more of that in school. So I think in a sense, Giovanni, Figaro are easier to put together in some respects because we all kind of know the style, and it's that Western elegance that we've all kind of been steeped in. And for me, you start a Mozart aria and it's, for the most part, one tempo all the way through. It might be in two parts, it might have two tempi. But this show is completely different. It starts slow and then it's fast, and it's slow and it's fast, and it's just always changing. So it really kind of keeps the orchestra and the stage on their proverbial toes. So some things have been a lot harder that I wasn't expecting. But I don't think it'll sound, I hope it won't sound difficult. It should sound fresh and fun and
No, it's been sounding great.
Champagne bubbles.
Yeah. Any quick question for Maestro before he goes to do his pre-show work?
But you know, there's so much available now on the internet, so you can watch every production probably that's ever been done of this on YouTube. How much influence do you get from what you might be able to see online when you do a performance? Or do you want to just come into it fresh and go, I don't know what's out there already, I just know this is what I want to do?
Oh, that's a good question, and Steve, for your listeners there, the question, paraphrasing, is so many versions existing, how much do we draw upon the work of others and let that influence you incorporate into what we do? You want to answer musically, and then...
Well, actually, I kind of thought the opposite for this piece. I thought, compared to other operas I've worked on, there was very little on YouTube of this, especially the version that we are doing. You might see a slightly different two-act version. So I didn't listen nearly as much to versions of Orpheus as I would have other operas. So I feel like I kind of came at it using my own instincts and ideas. But generally I do like to listen to two or three really solid recordings and watch a few things on YouTube. And I think it's okay to pick and choose a few things you might want to copy and ideas and timings here and there. But I think, for better or for worse, this one's got more of my stamp on it than anybody else's that I know.
It's a good stand. Good one. All right, well, thank you. Thanks, Maestro.
Pleasure.
Anything else to share before
No.
you climb down into the
If you see
pit?
me, you'll just see a little bit of that waving around the edge. People only recognize me from the back of my head, so it's been nice to see you face forward.
Thank you, sir. Have fun. To answer that question from the stage director point of view, I tend not to watch a lot of work. I like to, I have a very overactive imagination. I'm pretty hyper-fantasic. My parents always say that, every other word out of my mouth when I was a little kid was like, ooh, let's pretend, or what if this, or what if that? And some of my regular collaborators, such as the projection designer on this production, Brittany Miranda, she lovingly, I hope, teases me all the time about, you're what-ifing me to death. We don't have time. Just stop. So I tend to try and, bring a unique view to it. I've directed this production a few times, produced it as well. So borrowing a little bit, the idea when the Olympians go to Hades, we sort of treat it like hell, the amusement park experience. So when you first see the gods and goddesses, they make their entrance from stage right. They're carrying a giant box of hell popcorn, and Cupid's got a pitchfork, and Mercury's wearing little devil horns, and Diana gets a shirt that says hell yeah, things like that. So there've been in a previous production we didn't have the ability this time on island, but the foam fingers that say number one. I've done ones that have been like a rock hand, like that type of thing. So that's that's an idea sort of borrowing from previous productions. What's that? Oh, thank you. So borrowing from some previous productions. I did, however, Angel Prince was supposed to be the choreographer. So when you see the choreography, do not judge Angel. It is my very limited choreography. I used to be a dancer back in another life, started college that way. But Angel fell ill and wasn't able to join us as the choreographer. So I did think, all right, let me see, because basically as a director, when I'm working with the choreographer, kind of set everything up and say, great, this is your space, these are your bars, these are your, the number of 8-bar phrases that you have to fill in, and this is the general flow. And so I thought, I haven't thought through this. Typically, if I've done it, I've got a troupe of dancers who aren't necessary to sing. In our particular production, everybody on stage, their voice is necessary at every moment. So I couldn't select out some dancers, so we had to keep it sort of within a box of these are moves that they can do while dancing, while moving, and while being active. So that came into play. So I opened up I think 2 or 3 recordings, and I was like, all right, what are they doing here on the can? Okay, yeah, okay, great. I can get away with what I had planned. That type of thing. So I think Melanie, one of our stage managers, was telling me I just got a couple of minutes. So any other questions? Yes, right here in front.
For those of us who are here to support the festival but don't know about opera, can you just give us the storyline so we kind of get an idea?
Sure. Absolutely, yeah. So for those who are here to support the festival, aren't familiar with opera, this is a parody of the Orpheus and Eurydice myth. The god of the underworld, Pluto, steals Eurydice for her prized beauty, takes her to the underworld. Her husband, Orpheus, who's a famed musician, beautiful voice, can charm everybody, seeks the help from Mount Olympus to go and reclaim his bride. The deal that is struck is that Orpheus must accompany Eurydice out of the underworld, but can't look back. If he looks back, she'll turn to stone or turn to dust and disintegrate. And in the real story, Orpheus looks back and loses forever his Eurydice. In our version, it's a farce. It's a parody. And so it's the voice of public opinion, and on our production, the voice of social media and all the news networks, judging harshly and canceling people for this behavior and uplifting people for other behavior. So what you'll see is the story of Orpheus, who's a musician, Eurydice, who's a maybe not so faithful wife, their escapades, Eurydice being taken to hell, Orpheus going up to Mount Olympus, but then going on the journey to Hades, to hell, to reclaim her. We tried to get some Waimea specific things. So in Act 1, you'll probably notice Mauna Kea in the background, and one of the fields from here, so little things like that. Did I get it, Rona?
And how will the can fit in all of it?
The can, you'll see it once, briefly in Act 1, where Orpheus quotes the Infernal Gallop, as he called his version of the can in this opera. So he's about right here, and he does a couple of kicks here, then does a nice fan kick with his right foot. And then you'll see that in Act 3, there's a musical joke where they all dance the minuet, kind of poking fun at the tight-laced nature of things, and then that gives way to the can. It was a dance that featured women. It was in the program note. It was something that allowed them to kind of break free from their chains of oppression in the form of dance. So all the ladies we had available to do the dance are involved in that. They right down stage center here. So yeah, and all the things you'll see, the cartwheels and the port d'âme and rond de jambe, like all of those different moves are traditional moves. They were, as I said in the program note, sometimes they were done to show the undergarments, and sometimes on purpose no undergarments. We're keeping it PG, so none of that here, but it's just a nod to the historical thing. So thank you all so much. I know that I'm at the time and up against it. I really appreciate you coming. Yeah, thank you for your support. Look for all the little jokes and inside things and enjoy. So I think now we'll probably all go out the back, head out into the lobby, so that the Kahilu staff and folks can come through and do the fogging. And afterwards, after the show, the staff has asked us to meet everybody outside on the lanai. So if you have some more questions or you see some things, feel free, find me and ask or talk to the cast members. But thank you all so much for your support and for being here. We'll see you soon. Enjoy the show. Thank you.
Did you know that you can also find Songs and Stories episodes on our website, bigislandmusic.net? The online magazine has been covering the music scene since 2017, and there's lots of great content, including interviews, reviews, and video performances too. Head over to bigislandmusic.net to find out more.